Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we continue the tearful yet unbreakably brave love story of single mom Lai Hoi-ca and police officer Hung. In the last episode, Hoi-ca was knocked unconscious by attackers, badly injured, and dumped along a riverbank in a stormy night. When all hope seemed lost, a fisherwoman and her child happened upon her and managed to pull her out in time. In a small leaf-thatched hut by the water they roughly dressed her wounds and kept her alive through the danger, but Hoi-ca remains in a coma, unable to name the person who tried to kill her. Meanwhile, Officer Hung refuses to give up, even with only scattered clues: a half-pressed tire track in the soft mud, a blood-streaked strip of torn fabric caught on a stake, drag marks leading toward the river before fading away. Piece by piece he rebuilds the scene, cross-checking witness snippets with tide charts to narrow the search zone. The deeper he digs, the more he senses this was no random assault. Someone who knew Hoi-ca's movements may be pulling the strings. Time is running out, her wounds could turn septic, and at home a child still waits for its mother. Will Hung track her down in time? When Hoi-ca wakes, will she remember the moment of attack and name the one behind it? And can the bond between a resilient single mother and a determined officer survive this life and death test? Stay with us. Don't miss today's episode to find out. The next morning, while Hung was still rechecking the scene map, the head of the Criminal Investigation Unit rushed him to the tech lab. The forensic report had just come in. Blood recovered from a broken stick near the stream bank was a DNA match to hair from Lai Hoi-ca. No more doubt, she was assaulted right there before she vanished. Long slide marks down the rock slope and mud smeared on the stick's tip strengthened the theory she'd been thrown toward the water. The original suspect pool, over 30 people who had contact or conflict with Hoi-ca in the past 3 months, shrunk to 10 after eliminating those out of district, alibied, or already in custody. Next move, sweep downstream along the creek in the direction the current ran that night, and pull footage from the low-water crossing camera plus small fishing landings along the river. Latents from the weapon are still pending full comparison, some prints washed and smeared, others stacked in overlapping layers the techs must digitally separate. The chief told him, grab a few hours rest. I'll call the second we have something. But listen, don't abandon that creek. There's something out there we're not seeing. His tone was measured, his eyes were not. He knew Hung was past the breaking point any investigator faces when the case hits someone he loves. Outside, Hung leaned against the stairwell rail, white-knuckled around the evidence pouch. Pain knifed through him, every minute might decide whether Hoi-ca lives. Flashes of her strained smile and the vegetable patch, her arms around Tony, flickered and dissolved into the hiss of running water in his head. Nights at the scene, days at home cooking, washing, mixing formula, rocking Tony, who keeps asking, "Where's Mom?" with swollen, red-rimmed eyes that crush his chest. Hung stays steady for the child. The moment he turns away, the room caves in. That afternoon, after dropping Tony with his grandmother, Hung and the recon team returned to the creek. This time they widened the search radius, pole-hooking under drowned brush, logging every scrap of cloth, every clawed scrape on stone, every reed snapped at an odd height. On the suspect map they layered color codes: who's traveled the forest trail shortcuts, who knows the descents to the waterline, who's tangled in money disputes, or romantic fallout, with Hoi-ca. Every line converges on the night she disappeared. What will the water give back? Which name on that shrinking list will surface when the prints clear? Stay with us, more unfolds in the next episode. Morning at the village market. Hoi-ca's foster mother was picking through a basket of greens when the fish seller leaned in and whispered, "Hoi-ca's been missing for days. They say something bad happened up by the creek." Another vendor cut in, "I saw an ambulance head that way the other night." Her heart dropped. The basket hit the wet floor and she didn't even notice. She abandoned her shopping and went straight to the station to find Officer Hung. Hung was bent over the scene map when a shaky voice called from the doorway. One look at her and he knew there was no more hiding it. She pressed him, "Where is Hoi-ca?" 5 days, no calls, the house dark, the phone dead. Hung kept his tone steady but it still rasped. Hoi-ca's been out of contact for 5 days. Evidence of an assault near the stream. Blood on a stick matched her hair. They're expanding the waterway search and have cut the suspect list from more than 30 down to 10 locals still in play. He apologized for not telling her sooner. He'd hoped to confirm something solid before making her worry. She covered her face and broke into sobs, then just as quickly wiped them away, as if one extra minute of crying might cost her daughter's life. "Leave Tony to me," she said. "You find her. Stay with us." This search just turned personal. 5 days have passed and Lai Hua-Ica still lies unconscious in the streambank shack of the farm-and fishing mother and son who found her. They've boiled water to rinse the wound, packed it with crushed herbal leaves, pried her lips to drip in thin rice porridge, then begged the commune medic to come. He shone a light across her eyes, saw the sluggish pupil response, and warned of serious head trauma, likely a severe brain injury. She needs hospital transfer immediately if she's to survive. But the household is flat broke, fertilizer debts piled high, and their last asset is a single cow. The son, desperate, says sell it and haul her to the hospital. His mother grips his arm. "If we sell, what do we live on? Let her wake and tell us who she is, then we decide." Neighbors gather as the story spreads. Some urge reporting to the authorities for transport support, others fear being dragged into a criminal case. The widow only shakes her head and keeps changing the poultice, waiting for the stranger to open her eyes. Crickets drone, bitter herbs hang in the air, and Hua-Ica does not stir. Every hour without transfer edges her closer to danger, yet the stubborn kindness of these poor villagers still holds her in the narrow space between life and death. The fingerprint report from the Creekside crime scene barely had time to land at the station before Hung had arrest warrants in hand. 2 usable impressions from the blood-smeared stick matched prior offenders in the system: Bui Van Chung, petty theft, prior stretch for aggravated assault, and Lo Van Nam, gambling, misdemeanor battery. Teams fanned out. Hung personally led the strike unit that closed in on Chung, holed up in a rough timber shack near a lumber staging yard. He went down fast. When they cuffed him, dry mud scratches ringed his wrists, same soil type logged at the scene. Back to the station. Separate rooms. Separate interviews. Under the interrogation lamp, Chung cracked with startling speed. He said a man he knew only as Mr. Truong hired him to teach a lesson to a woman with a small child, name unknown, for 50 million, dong. 20 up front, the balance after, finishing it clean. Contact came through an old underworld channel Chung reactivated. Investigators tagged this pathway Subject 1, Chung B, to avoid name confusion. Chung pulled in Nam. The knockout agent, a powder to be dissolved and breathed in through a cloth, came from Truong. The night of the attack they used a rented pickup, staked out near Lai Hua-Ica's house, and waited until she stepped onto the porch. "Just wafted, leave no trace," Truong had told them. They grabbed her, gagged her, wrapped the drugged cloth. En route they rifled her bag, took the phone, yanked the SIM, and tossed it in a rice field. Truong's drop point, a rough, overgrown creek bend behind a stand of Melaleuca, roughly 1 kilometer, line of sight, from where police later found blood. There, Chung says, they beat her, recording video as proof, using a branch torn from the brush, the same stick recovered as the weapon. When she began moaning loudly they panicked and shoved her into a hard-running side channel. "Alive or dead, I don't know." Current was ripping, Chung said. While Chung was talking, another team picked up Nam, who drifted back into town after burning through his advance. Nam confirmed the story and added that the remaining payment was to come either by transfer through a man called Trung, Truong's money relay, or in cash at an outlying auto repair shed once the job was verified. He produced a string of phone numbers he'd saved under coded labels. Quick checks showed one number had pinged a cell tower near Hua-Ica's home the night she disappeared. Cross interviews followed. Timelines aligned. 21:10 approached the house, 21:40 depart with the victim, 22:15 reached the creek site, clear out before 2300 hours. Hung noted the timestamps line up with motion picked up on the low water crossing camera Tex had just pulled. Even with the higher chain exposed, Truong, contractor, Trung, money/relay, Chung and Nam, muscle, the one thing that matters most is still missing. Where is Lai Hua-Ica? Chung insists they left her to the current. Night was black, he couldn't see if she moved. Nam remembers a faint, raspy breathing, but can't swear to it. That channel feeds into the Mlan confluence, then down to the main river. If she survived the blows, she might have washed far downstream, snagged in reeds, or been pulled out by fishermen who never knew her name. Hung felt ice climb his spine. It's been more than 5 days since the assault. Severe head trauma plus immersion, odds are brutal, unless she caught somewhere shallow and was found in time. He ordered an immediate full-course sweep, from the Wild Creek Truong specified, down the Mlan Junction, through the river reach where blood evidence surfaced, checking every fishing hut, net raft, and makeshift pump station. Parallel tracks, pull cache movement logs near the 50 million mark, trace pickup truck rentals on the incident night, and subpoena records on the phone numbers tied to Trung and Truong. The interrogation room reeked of sweat, ink, and cold metal cuffs. Each new detail carved deeper into Hung's chest. Every minute lost thins the line between rescue and recovery. He kept his face hard for the suspects, but the pen in his hand trembled. Tony is safe with her foster grandmother, he reminded himself. Find his mother. Bring her home. Stay with us. This case just blew wide open. Hung and Du bolted for the creek the moment the suspect said she'd been dumped at the stream. With a gridded topo map and red-topped stakes, they inched their way along the twisting watercourse through the Melaleuca swamp, belly low in the muck, checking every drag scar, every skid of mud, every snapped blade of grass. At a sharp bend where the bank had sloughed away, Hung dropped to a knee and swung his light across a flat rock. A dark brown smear soaked into the mossy film. When he touched a test swab and reagent to the underside, fresh crimson bloomed. Bagged as evidence, but even by eye it looked very much like human blood, exactly on the line of travel the suspect had mapped. Just a few steps on, tangled in water hyacinth pushed ashore, lay a woven bamboo fish creel, the kind locals anchor below the surface with a float. Its cord was snapped. Inside, a few long hairs mixed with fish scales, and on the rim a pale scrap of cloth, the same washed-out tone as the sleep shirts Hung remembered from videos on HAICA's phone. He and Du locked eyes. If the attackers only beat her and pitched her into the current, why is a working fish creel lying at the blood site? Far more likely, someone who fishes these banks came through after the assault, maybe hauled her out, maybe snagged her while pulling nets, maybe even used the creel as a makeshift float to tow her. Du ran the flow in his head. Water from Truong's side channel feeds this bend, then drops past a shallow sand flat where villagers set stake nets. A free-floating body, alive or dead, usually lodges on that bar or in net lines. Search teams have worked downstream for 5 days and found nothing. In this heat and modest depth, an unrecovered drowning victim often surfaces within 24 to 72 hours. No report, no body. That means one of two things: she was swept far beyond the low water weir, low probability, or somebody pulled her out before she ever had the chance to rise. The blood trail dark to light at the waterline says she was still bleeding when she hit ground, but the churned mud that follows doesn't track the current, it angles up the bank, as if a heavy load was dragged to higher ground. The creel sits dead center between twin drag grooves. Somewhere along these fishing shacks and river gardens, someone knows what happened after the beating. And if they pulled her breathing from that current, she may still be alive. Stay with us, Hung's closing in. After 5 days in a fevered coma, Lai Haica twitched, just a fingertip, and let out a thin groan. The farm widow at the stream hut spun around from rinsing herbal leaves. Haica's eyes cracked open, dull and slow to track. Her lips were cracked dry. The widow's son slid an arm behind her shoulders. "Can you hear me? Do you know your name?" he asked. Pain creased her brow. She scanned the bamboo rafters, lost. Fingers found the cloth bandage at her temple. "Where am I?" she rasped. "You fell in the creek, we pulled you out," the widow told her. Tears welled, but recognition did not. A spike of headache drove her to retch dry. Memory splintered. She felt sure someone important was missing from her side yet could not form the name, only two. The widow froze. Nights earlier, while delirious, the stranger had kept crying, "Tony." Mother and son exchanged a look. They had to report this. The widow threw on her conical hat and hurried to the Hamlet community house, leaving her son to watch the patient. She poured out the whole story, how they found the injured young woman days ago, kept her hidden out of fear, waited for her to wake. Now she's conscious but disoriented, no papers, no family. The Hamlet chief's face hardened. Not reporting is against procedure. The district has an active missing person alert. Saving her was right, he said, but hiding her wasn't. He and the commune constable went back with her that afternoon. HAICA was awake but confused, too weak to stand. The chief drafted a preliminary record: unidentified female victim, possible head trauma, memory disturbance, requires comparison with district missing persons list. He phoned the commune clinic and the district hotline requesting transport. The trail in is rough, so villagers cut bamboo and lashed a makeshift stretcher. The widow pleaded, "Let her stay here till the higher officers come, she's too weak to move." A compromise: keep her at the hut overnight under watch. At first light the commune medic and district police will come to evaluate and transfer. Until then, the household must report immediately if she spikes fever, worsens, or remembers anything about who she is. Lai Ha blinks into a haze of pain and emptiness. She remembers nothing of the beating, nothing of the night she was hurled into the creek. Each time she reaches for the memory, a white-hot spike stabs her skull and only one broken syllable escapes. On the far side of the forest, Hung and Du are still clawing along the banks, grid by grid, following the suspect's statements, unaware local fisherfolk already pulled her from the water. The Hamlet chief has filed a report with the commune and district. A single cross-check against the missing persons list will show the injured stranger is HAICA. But will she regain enough clarity to say her name, to ask for baby Tony, to call for Hung, before head injury complications scramble her memory for good? Will Hung's team read the clue of the snapped fish creel, plot the coordinates, and reach the bamboo hut in time? And can her untreated head wound ride out the risks of swelling and infection? Everything hangs by a thread. Join us in the next episode to see whether HAICA's memory returns, whether this mother, child, and the officer who loves them find their way back to each other, and how deep the hired attack conspiracy really goes. Don't miss it.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, lại là mình đây. Mấy hôm nay thì kênh này của mình bắt đầu đăng những video về nội dung của câu chuyện Lý Hoài Ca. Ngoài ra thì sắp tới sẽ có những câu chuyện hay hơn. Mình mong rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn để càng ngày kênh mình càng ra những video hay và ý nghĩa hơn. Mong là thời gian tới mọi người sẽ đóng góp nhiều ý kiến cho kênh, nhiều ý kiến hơn cho kênh của mình để kênh của mình có thể ra được nhiều video hay và nhận được nhiều ý kiến đóng góp của mọi người hơn nữa. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật thì mọi người cũng có thể like video hoặc là chia sẻ video đến những người khác. Ngoài ra thì có thể để lại những ý kiến bình luận, đóng góp ý kiến cho các nhân vật cũng như cho kênh của mình. Và cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi video. Hy vọng là sẽ gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Bye bye.